Adam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
So I read your LinkedIn earlier, the title you use on there, High Performance Coach for Senior Leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And I scrolled down a little bit and found a little bit of extra which I liked, which makes me excited for this conversation. None of the usual fluff or vague BS either.
There's a lot of that in the coaching world of, feeling your body and energy healing and shoving crystals somewhere the sun doesn't shine, and that's going to rectify the problem. And that's just not my experience of coaching whatsoever. It's getting to the deep-rooted problem as quickly as possible, identifying it, ripping out the proverbial weeds and planting the new seeds down, as it were, i.e. new strategies, because a lot of men struggle. It's mainly men that I do work with. I do have female clients too, but most men are very purpose-driven and they want a solution to the problem. They don't want to talk about the problem over and over again. So while I'm a huge advocate for therapy, and I've gone through therapy myself, find it hugely beneficial, a lot of men struggle with it. So I very much get to the point as fast as possible so they don't have to feel like they're sort of macerating in misery, as it were.
Yeah.
And instead they can, right, this is what I need to do. Now I've got a solution. Now I can work through it. And that's my approach to coaching.
Right, hold that thought, and we're going to get into all of that in a bit of detail. But can I ask you, before we do, just tell us about your personal journey, Adam. What led you to coaching men and where you're at now? How did you get there?
It all started in the womb. No, I'm joking. So when I've always been fascinated by human behaviour, and this came from days in school because I've got dyspraxia and ADHD, and this was undiagnosed until about 15 or 16 years old. So I couldn't keep up with the blackboard. Dyspraxia is a hand-eye coordination deficit, essentially. It's a problem. So I'd be naturally scanning the room a lot more than the average bear, and I'd get very frustrated that I couldn't keep up with the rest of the class. So I used to look at people, and I've been more fascinated with their behaviour. So even at the age of like 7 or 8, I'm watching how the teacher's interacting with the kid, how the kid's responding to the teacher, so on and so forth. As my time progressed, again, I loved just being a part of a team, football, etc. I got to about 18 and I just started discovering Paul McKenna's work, who's a hypnotist, NLP specialist and whatever. A lot of people in the UK sort of might know Paul McKenna. That led me to Tony Robbins, that led me to Les Brown, that led me to Zig Ziglar. And I was sort of studying human behaviour quite intensely from the age of 18 or 19. So most people would have, when they're playing video games at that sort of age or whatever, they're having music playing in the background. I'd have self-development videos, but nobody knew this. And just because I was fascinated by it. And then I got into hospitality, and without sounding creepy, your job really is to watch people. You have to look at what they're doing. Are they dancing to this song? Maybe the song's not that great. Are they shivering? Maybe it's too cold in here. Are they leaning in to talk to people? Maybe it's too loud. Are they putting the jacket on? Are they taking the jacket off? Is it too hot? So you have to watch patterns of behaviour. Also, alcohol involved. There's danger. There's this, there's that. So just watching patterns of movement, but also how people engage with each other has always been really interesting to me. And then I worked my way through hospitality. I was in that industry for 14 years, managed thousands of people in senior leadership teams, and did some consultancy work and what have you. But again, always in the backdrop, I always had this sort of obsession that no one really knew about. It was my sort of like dirty secret.
Yeah.
And I'd do Facebook statuses around it sometimes with motivational quotes, and I'd get criticised and ridiculed, and who do you think you are, Mr. Motivator, and all this kind of stuff. But I loved it because I do believe in all of it. So then it got to about, if I reverse a little bit, when I was like early 20s, I went to a life coach because I'd seen Tony Robbins. I was like, I need someone like this in my life. So I went to go see this guy in Harrogate, and I walked in. I was like, hi mate, how you doing? He's like, yeah, I've had a bit of a bad day actually. I was like, oh shit, right, okay. He shook my hand and it was like a dead fish. I was like, oh my God, I was expecting...
And he was the leader of the course.
He was like the life coach, right? I was like, what's happening here? Like, so I started telling him about how he could improve his day, and I thought, what's going on? I'm 20 in my early 20s and I'm educating this man on how to get a better mindset.
And
I'm
I've paid for this.
Yeah, exactly. So I just thought I could do that and I could do it better. So I did a bit of personal training, realised that I didn't really enjoy that. I had half the crowd was people from the military base camp in Harrogate, half my clientele were yummy mummies, as the term was. I don't like that phrase, but that's what a lot of them referred to themselves as at the time. And it was just very frustrating for me because they didn't have the same discipline that I did. So I scrapped that. And then it got to around 31 years old. I'm 36 now. And I thought there's got to be more to life than 70-hour weeks, getting paid for 48, misery, long nights, on my feet. It's a young man's game, hospitality, especially in late night venues. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. So I didn't know what to do. I jumped from a few different bars and restaurants to one another in Leeds. And then lockdown hit. I was like, right, I don't know what I want to do in my life. Do I want to go into football coaching? Do I want to do personal training again? Do I want to do life coaching of some description? So I did one of Tony's courses and it was just absolutely incredible. It was so good because it was called KBB, which is very dangerously close to KGB, not to be confused. But it was Knowledge Broker Blueprint, which essentially was a 6-month program to set up your business. So everything from marketing to sales to writing compelling copy, email marketing, etc. And I went through it in about 3 months because there was nothing else to do. So I was just doing like 15-hour days, just sat going through this course. And then I started putting messages out on Facebook. I made loads of changes in this time as well, by the way. So in a 4 or 5 month period, I think I lost about 28 kilograms. I'd ballooned in weight over the last 2 years previous. Even though I knew how to be in shape, I just wasn't. I was drinking too much, so took a break from booze, drinking water, getting outside, and I started posting about it. And I monetized the business within the first sort of couple of weeks. I was like, my God, I can't believe this is happening. And then it got to about 6 months in, and I thought, I can't do this on my own anymore because I'm doing everything. And I don't thrive with loads of nitty gritty, with loads of like accounts and admin and what have you. I want to be in front of people. I want to be energizing. I want to be inspiring. I don't want to be sat here rubbing my face going, So I reached out to 2 clients of mine at the time, both called Adam as well, incidentally. I'd known them both for a number of years, but they'd never met before. And I said, I've got this idea because I love talking to them both. One was a nutritional therapist and one was a physiotherapist / personal trainer. I can see a gap in the market. There's nothing that's doing all three that I know of in the UK. So if we can transform people's health over a 3 to 6 month period, for argument's sake, we work on their mindset, we work on their eating plans, we work on the physical exercise. Let's just see how we get on. And we launched it in the January of 2021. And it just absolutely flew.
Tell me about your personal journey alongside the work one, though. So, aside from, was it purely just the interest in people, or what was your personal journey alongside it? We just spoke off air a little bit about some therapy that you did. Tell me about that bit.
Sure. So, it got to about 2017 where that was probably the rock bottom moment. So, I was working quite well-known venue in Leeds, working 70, 80-hour weeks over a Christmas period. And I don't mean this to sound dramatic, it's just literally how it was. If you didn't tell me what day of the week it was, I wouldn't know. I'd only know by the bookings that were in, because that's how sort of immersed I felt in it. It was horrible. Working, 9, 10 a.m. till midnight or 1 in the morning, and doing it all again for pretty much 30 days. It was horrific. And obviously you neglect your health in that time, you neglect your relationships in that time. And I just completely burnt out. And I remember I broke down in tears in front of my area manager, who I really don't like, and I still don't like to this day. That was awful in itself, just admitting there was a problem, especially to someone like that. Anyway, so I went to the doctor, and he was like, "Oh, are you sleeping that well at the moment?" I was like, "No." "Do you have low energy?" "Yeah." "Do you have much hope at the moment?" "Not really." "Are you drinking too much alcohol?" "Yeah," etc., etc. It went on for about 15 questions. He said, "I'm really sorry to say that you've got depression." I was like, "Oh no." It's like, so I'd recommend these pills, antidepressants. At no point did he say healthy foods, exercise, get outside, look after yourself better. Here's some pills. I said, I don't want that. I don't need that. but I do need some time away from work. And January's dead in hospitality for the most part. So he said, right, I'll give you a letter to sign you off for 30 days. So I went to work, told him that. During this time, however, I had a big argument with my partner, and we were together for 4 years at the time. And she moved out for a week to gather her thoughts, came back and ended it. I was like, shit. And it ended in about 2 minutes. And I thought I was going to marry this person. So it was like being stabbed. The pain, genuinely. I had a panic attack as well. So it was just completely out of the blue. I thought we were going to rectify it. When I saw her driving into the estate, I was like, right, I'll get my Sunday best on, got some flowers, etc. It's over. I'm so sorry. See you later. Was essentially the way it played out. But in fairness to her, the relationship was a mess and it needed to end. She was just brave enough to do it on reflection. So I don't hold anything against her for that. And then I went back to work way too early after a few weeks. Little did I know they were actually planning to get rid of me behind the scenes. So they were watching every one of my moves. So during this time, I lost my auntie who'd been suffering with a horrific form of brain cancer for a number of years. She passed away. A week later, my uncle had a heart attack in Morrison's and passed away. So I've lost two people now. I've lost my relationship, and little did I know that I've been forced out of my job. So fast forward about 6 or 8 weeks, it all came to a head. It was becoming very evident they didn't want me there anymore. They put me on some performance review based on nothing. I handed my notice in and I left. So now I'm jobless. 2 family members down. My partner left me. Then another family member died. This was all within the space of 2-3 months. I'm like, what is happening? And I remember just being so low that getting out of bed felt like a chore. I was like, I don't have the energy to physically move today, so I'm just going to sit here and just hope the pain goes away. And I always look forward to nighttime because that's the only time where you don't feel the pain, is when you're asleep. That's how bad it got. So I went to a bit of therapy, started working on myself, got a new job. I was general manager of Jake's on Cole Lane. So the good times were good, the bad times were horrific, as you can probably imagine in a venue like that. It was getting drunk every night. It was one night stands. It was this, it was that. And people go, oh, sounds amazing. No, that was pure misery, absolute misery. And, loads of fake relationships and friendships formed because you're the general manager of Jake's. Everyone wants to be your best mate, and you get them queue jump and you get them free drinks. And then again, when the hard time comes, no one's there. Shock. So fast forward about 4 months now, we're in the August or September time, and my best friends rang me in the morning. He just said, I don't know what to say, but my dad's just had a heart attack and he's just died. Like, what the fuck? Like, this completely took me back and I had no idea. And I had like instantaneous grief. I just started crying, like just so much there. And then I went to the funeral and I was so much in denial. I was just looking around all this pain, and I was so miserable myself and drinking so much at the time. It's like, what's the point? What is the point? If this is what life is, I don't want it. I'm looking around at his wife just in bits, family in bits. I drank about 10 pints at the wake, literally just like bang, one after the other. And because I was drinking so much, I used to drink probably 1.5 to 2 bottles of spirit on a Saturday night while working.
Wow.
So I don't say that to impress anybody. I'm horrified by it now, but that's how bad it got. So 10 pints to me was like nothing. So, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to end it today. What's the point? So the wake was 5 minutes down the road from where my parents lived. I said goodbye to them for what I thought was going to be the last time. I didn't want to hurt anybody else. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't want to hang myself. I didn't want to be found. I didn't want to, do anything like what I felt like radical. But the only thing I could think of logically at the time was I'll crash my car. I'll drive into a post, a bridge, something at high speed. Then at least it's only me that gets hurt, and they won't find me, etc. And I apologise if this is a little bit too graphic for some people, but this is just where my head was at. And I remember getting in the car, driving, and I thought, right, here we go. So hit the accelerator. It was going about 100 miles an hour, about 400 or 500 feet away maybe from where I planned to hit on impact. And it just came up on the screen and just said, Mum is calling.
No way.
And I was like, oh, it just literally like genuinely got goosebumps now thinking about it, because I was like, oh my God, what the hell is happening here? I started to slow down slightly and I answered. She's like, Adam? I was like, yeah. She's like, you've left your wallet at home. Do you want me to drop it off for you? And I just slammed the brakes on like that, and the car was just swerving all over the place. Luckily, again, no other cars coming, so I didn't want to cause harm to anybody else. And I just pulled over into a lay-by and I sobbed for hours. Like, I've never cried like that ever in my life. My shirt was just wet through. And I remember sitting there thinking, right, it can't get worse than this. This is it. I've hit absolute rock bottom. I was about to end my life. And had I not seen that, I don't know what might have happened, but I did. And that's the reality. And until this day, I, count my sort of lucky stars, as it were. Mum knows the full story about that day. But yeah, I thought, right, I started to bring in little moments of gratitude. How grateful am I that at least Mum and Dad are still around and still happily married? How grateful am I that I've got my health, I've got my family, etc. But that was the lowest of the low.
It's sort of hard to... It blows my mind, really, the timing of that. And for your mum to ring you in that moment, how? Why? Why? Clearly is obvious, but how? Yeah. My mind's not big or wide enough, I think, to understand the synchronicity of that and just the randomness of it, but it's so pertinent to stop you in your tracks.
Literally. I just couldn't, looking back on it on reflection, it's harrowing. It's for some people, it's fate. It's all things are meant to happen, whatever, right? Everything happens for a reason, etc. I just think of it as just dumb luck and timing.
Yeah.
I think of that as
coincidence.
Yeah, coincidence. I think that's what life is. I think it's just timing a lot of the time. You can make your own luck to an extent, don't get me wrong, but it might be that one big break that the actor gets or the singer and the agent of XYZ walks past just as you're busking and things like that just happen. I think it's just down to timing, but equally I think you can put yourself in that position to succeed more frequently than what other people will do.
Well, let's move on to that. So thanks for sharing that, by the way. That's like very deep. I know you said off air you've shared it a few times, but even so, sharing it, even if it's the 20th time, 50th time, it's still a fair story to share, isn't it? And clearly you still feel it.
Yeah, that's it. It's the thing is that most people that end their life, when you look at the notes that they leave for people, it's worthless or it's useless. And we were talking about this before as well, the podcast we listened to yesterday on Stephen Bartlett. It's a great episode, by the way, but it's so true that when you feel like you don't have a purpose or any point of being, then you feel like you're a burden. And I felt like people would be better off if I wasn't here. And that's why I thought to do it. And I've had moments, not in the last couple of years, granted, but I've had moments since then where the only thing that has kept me here is the thought of the destruction that I could cause and how much I want to avoid doing that for my family. Like the thought of my mum getting that phone call, I don't want to put that on her. And that's the sole sort of reason that has kept me here for as long as it has. But like I said, I've not had those levels of ideology. I've had the thoughts. I don't think the thoughts ever go away. We all have those horrific days where you just go, what's the point? But I've not had that ideology in a very long time to go, this is the end for me, and then now my mission is to ensure as many people avoid that pain that I went through. And I'm going to do that by hook or by crook, and I'm going to do it, and it's going to piss some people off along the way, perhaps, because they might not want to hear what I have to say, or they might think it's radicalized, or they might think it's too much, or whatever. But we have to get to the bottom of what's really going on in order to make those changes for people.
What is really going on? What do you think is preventing people from living happy, content, successful, fulfilled lives? Let's say men, if you work with men generally, let's hone down on men. We're a similar age. I'm 38, and I'm sure a few people listening will be in that category. What's stopping men living a fulfilled, happy, successful life?
A lot of people I work with don't feel like they're deserving of it. This is usually sort of anchored in from an early age, and they don't even know where it began. So they just think that they're just this way and that something's wrong with them. So it might be, for an example, mum, typically for men our age, women were at home more and the dad was out working. That's the case for a lot of households. I know it's not the case for everyone, but for a lot of households it was. And I really work with men that are over 45 to 50, so even more so.
Yeah.
So, again, this isn't across the board, but typically, dad dad isn't as emotionally available or physically available as the boys would like them to be. Mum's there. Mum generally is quite caring, quite nurturing. You come home from school and you have a drawing and, Mummy, look at my artwork. Oh, wow, did you do this? Yeah. Oh, we're going to put it on the fridge where everyone can see. This is amazing. I'm so proud of you. And people are going, yeah, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with that is you've acknowledged the achievement, not the person.
It sounds like you've been listening in my house.
Yeah.
To me.
So what we want to do instead is we want to say, oh, Mummy, Daddy, look at my drawing. Oh, hang on a second. Come give me a cuddle. Oh, I love you so much. Now what do we have here? Oh, you didn't do this, did you? Oh, wow, this is brilliant. I'm going to put it on the fridge, everyone can see.
I love you anyway.
Yeah, that nuance. So it's acknowledging the individual. Now, for a lot of people, Dad comes home. Dad, look at what? Look at my drawing. Yeah, fine. Okay, like whatever. Because they're emotionally unavailable because their fathers were emotionally available. And their fathers used to hit them with rulers or their slipper or their fist. And the upgrade is that they're emotionally not there. So I'm not going to physically hit you, but I'm also not going to be nurturing. I'm not going to be loving. I'm not going to be kind. I'm not going to be whatever, because that's not what it is to be a man. So men struggle with this quite frequently. And it's that old adage of heal the boy and the man will appear. A lot of women want their man to just be there and be masculine and, not like be the breadwinner and rule the roost or anything like that. But typically speaking, men, when they talk, get punished, so they don't. Because they get fixed, they get judged, they get told to man up, they get told boys don't cry, they get told it's going to be fine, don't worry about it, move on, as opposed to just being listened to. Because when I talked, I was punished. My partner left, out of the job, friends neglected me, relationships were just ending around me. So telling men to talk is nonsense. We have to educate people further on what to do when men do talk. It's not weakness. It is the biggest sign of strength, saying, I need help. But unfortunately, we've been conditioned to think the opposite. So I think that a lot of it, really, the deep-rooted thing is people don't feel good enough to change, so they don't. They don't feel worthy of the change, so they don't. So they stay stuck where they are because they're in the familiar zone, not the comfort zone. There's nothing comfortable about being miserable. There's nothing comfortable about being overweight or drinking too much or not having sex with your partner or whatever it might be. But you're so familiar with that pain, you don't know the pain of drinking water and going to the gym and prepping meals and stopping drinking alcohol and saying no to your friends sometimes. So you stay where you are because you're in the familiar zone. There's nothing comfortable about it. And that's the biggest issue I see with so many men, is that they don't know necessarily what to do in the partners, male or female, but they don't know how to respond to that.
Just going back to the point you first made about feeling deserving of it. So just to make sure I've understood that right, is that, Adam, down to, because typically, and we keep saying that, don't we, to make sure we're not talking about everyone here, but typically, that the father is emotionally unavailable, therefore the son's self-esteem isn't in a place that it could be. And if you don't feel yourself, therefore if your self-esteem is low, you don't feel yourself worthy of what might come your way.
Correct.
And then what, you don't necessarily go chasing that, or you sabotage it, or you don't even believe it's possible, even when it does come. Oh, that's not for me.
Yep. So all your successes are downplayed. Oh, I was just lucky. This is why people talk about imposter syndrome, which is, I absolutely hate that phrase, by the way. There's no syndrome here. You'd have to go to the doctor because you feel like an imposter, right?
Yeah.
It's a series of beliefs of not being good enough. So you panic before the meeting. People aren't going to listen to me. Who wants to? Why am I here? How did I become here? How am I the senior director? How am I the MD? How am I CEO? This is an accident, right? But these are just thoughts. These are just old belief patterns. So again, when we do go back slightly, so dad's emotionally unavailable. We tend to crave the love of the people that we get the least amount of it from. Because rejection or perceived rejection breeds obsession. That's why when, you'll see like how do I say this? I'm just going to say it, like an average looking guy, maybe with a really hot girl, because at the beginning he wasn't that interested. So the chase is there. because he's just, I'm out with my mates and whatever. People are like, how did he get the girl? Because he's probably less interested to start with. He might be really funny, he might be really kind, he might be whatever. But typically speaking, the perceived rejection breeds obsession. So if dad isn't around and he's not available, right, okay, how do I get his attention? I'll act like him. Maybe that will bring him closer to me.
And you're not doing that consciously?
No.
No, this is on a very unconscious
I'm going to mirror
level.
what I see. So I'm going to mirror some of the nurturing stuff from mum, but maybe not as much. So our people please around women, that's another typical thing that I see a lot. And yeah, I'm just going to be quiet because dad's quiet. And people say to me, I've just always bottled things up, Adam. I'm very particular about the language people use, not to be pedantic or to show them how clever I am, but the words that we use derive our thinking a lot of the time. So I worked with a guy who is from Ghana, and his words, not mine, African men don't open up. They don't show emotion. So when we did the inner work and we got into like a deeply focused state, I said, right, what's really going on here? My wife is just fuming at me because I don't open up. I don't open up emotionally. I always bottle things up. I always have done, right? What's your earliest memory of showing emotion and being punished for it? I have no idea. I said, you won't, because you won't remember what you had for lunch 3 days ago. So how can you remember when you were 8 years old? So what I tend to do with them is work through what's known as timeline therapy, but it's my own version of it. So I take them back to, you might not remember being 8 or 9, but you might remember being 3 or 4. You don't remember exactly what was said, of course, but you might remember the name of the nursery. Oh yeah, it was called St. John's. Okay, what do you remember about St. John's? I remember my teacher was called Mrs. Jones. Okay, what happened there? Oh, nothing's coming up there. Okay, let's fast forward a little bit. Do you remember being about 6 or 7? Actually, yeah. Someone pushed me over in the playground and I started crying. What else do you remember? People started laughing. Ah, interesting. So one of your first emotional anchors is pain, and me crying equals laughter. So I don't want to do that because I feel embarrassed about doing that. And some people go, you're too far-fetched. This is a bit too Freudian. It's not. This is generally what happens and what I see. So one of his earliest memories was he went to a family funeral. His uncle passed, he was really close with. And he was crying his eyes out. And his other uncle smacked him behind the head and said, boys don't cry. Stop that right now. You're embarrassing yourself. Something to that effect. He's 9 years old. So if he's crying, African men, in his words again, don't cry, and then he's cried and he's been punished, what do you think the likelihood is of him doing that again? Slim to none, probably. So he just carried that on throughout his whole life. So even though he's felt emotion, he's not actually displayed any of it because he's frightened of the reaction. So fast forward to present day, 34, married with 3 kids, doesn't talk. Now he won't shut up because he understands the problem and where it began. So now we've helped him reframe it in a different way. He's created compassion for his uncle, for his own healing, not because we want to protect everyone, because some people listening to this will have had abusive parents, and I'm not suggesting that you create loads of compassion for that individual. I'm suggesting create compassion, empathy, so you can heal.
Yeah, for yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what we did with him, and it solved an enormous amount of challenges and problems.
So a lot of these things you think are belief systems which we get in childhood, unconsciously, subconsciously, that we don't really even know we've got.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go into adulthood, adolescence, adulthood. Life happens. We act in certain ways. We don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
We're unhappy. We don't know why. We're discontent. We don't know why.
Yep.
We're unfulfilled. We don't know why.
Yep.
And do you think, is it fair to say, Adam, a lot of this stems back from belief systems we've gained in childhood?
Everything is. So don't get me wrong. Events can happen throughout your life that will alter your thinking. So let's imagine that you have the air quote perfect childhood, because most people say to me, I had a good childhood, or it was fine.
Yeah.
Mum and dad were together, they provided, it was okay. Or my family's dysfunctional. That's what I hear. Every family's dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the thing that I say is that, look, it doesn't matter how good or bad it was. It's whether your emotional needs, wants, and desires were met.
Emotional needs,
wants and desires. Yeah. Because I need you to do this for me. Want, I'd really like it if you could. Desire, maybe we could live a little, right? But you can bring that into bring that forward into your relationship with your wife now.
Yeah.
You could say, what are my needs, wants, and desires?
Yeah.
That's an exercise I do with clients. But it might be that they just weren't met. And it's all about perspective. There's someone out there today that is, they're 17 and they've got bought a Ferrari for their first car. And they're upset because it's in black and not in red.
Yeah.
There's somebody else out there today that has to decide between which child dies because they've got one immunisation pack and they've got 2 children. So it's not that it's the worst thing in the world, but it's the worst thing in their world in that moment. So we're a combination of our belief systems and everything else. Now, don't get me wrong. Let's go back to the example. So let's say you had a good childhood and nothing happened. And then at 18, you were sexually assaulted. Your view of the world is drastically going to change.
Yes.
So not everything goes back to childhood. However, most of it does. So it's imperative to establish exactly what the belief was, who put it onto you, because it will be someone. It will be a teacher, it will be a sibling, it will be your mum, your dad, or someone. And then it's just been incanted over time. So now it just becomes, well, that's just what happens. So for example, if you had, growing up, again, from like when the men were men era, women can't drive. And if I went into Morrison's car park and sat there for 2 hours, I'd find 10 examples where women can't drive very well. However, I'd also find 10 examples where men can't drive very well. But my belief system is that women can't drive.
Yeah.
So you get evidence to back up your belief.
Yeah.
No matter
It's
how
like
right or wrong it
confirmation
is.
bias, is that?
That's exactly what it is. So whether we like it or not, we are a combination of those beliefs and of those labels that have either been put onto us or that we've watched over time. So your children will be watching you and your partner now, and they will be framing their view of the world based on your view of the world.
Yeah.
Because they're coming to you as the point of trust and contact, right, for everything.
I think just going back one, you make a really good point about it being relative, with the Porsche example. And because I can think of a particular friend now who, we might have conversations where we open up a little, but there's almost a guilt associated with opening up about any problem or perceived problem you might have in your life because, hang on a minute, like I'm doing all right, I've got a house, I've got a wife, got kids, nice car, fairly settled, I wasn't physically abused. What right have I got to feel unhappy about something that's happening in my life? I don't feel like I've got a right, in fact, so I'm not going to talk about, or
Sure.
downplay it.
Yeah, that's a huge problem. So if you walk out there now and you see someone sat in a wheelchair that is got a double amputation, got no legs, if I walk up to you and hit you with a metal bar in your shin, are you allowed to feel pain? Of course you are.
Yeah.
Oh, but they've got both their legs chopped up. I know. It's not about comparing.
Yeah.
It's about perspective.
Yeah.
So perspective is, holy, that really hurt,
Yeah.
right? But in a few days, I'm going to be fine. And I'm really grateful that my body's able to do that. So we don't have to compare, because comparison is the thief of joy. We've heard it a million times.
Yeah.
But people compare usually in 2 ways, and they do it like this. They go, what have I got to complain about? The starving kids in Africa. And people tend to go to really extreme levels, right?
Yeah.
Either way.
But you have heard that. That's like
Absolutely.
It is a bit cliche and extreme,
Of course.
but we've all heard that.
Oh, starving kids in Africa. You need to eat your dinner. Well, I don't want to eat my dinner because I'm actually full, and you're going to create a disordered relationship with food for me, implying I need to eat everything on my plate to avoid the guilt that some starving child is in Africa. When in reality, we could do it about just about anything. There's always someone that's got it worse. There's always someone that's got it, air quote, better, right?
Yeah.
That's just the way that life is. There's always going to be someone fitter, stronger, taller, faster, richer, right? There's always going to be someone that's got it worse than you by what society would deem worse. Now, other people compare in the other way and go, I'm never going to be as good looking as Dwayne Johnson. I'm never going to have his money. I'm never going to be able to achieve X, Y, Z. So instead of gathering perspective and saying, you know what, it's an absolute travesty that this is happening in Africa, but really, me as an individual can't do a huge deal about that. I can maybe go out and volunteer and directly impact it for a little bit, but let's be real, I'm not going to be able to impact. It doesn't mean that I can't feel today. It doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to suffer today. And just because your mate Dave, who has just been divorced and has been kicked out and now is living in a studio apartment, having previously lived in a 4-bedroom mansion with a Ferrari, and now he's down on his luck and whatever, it doesn't mean that you're not allowed to feel because of your guilt and shame. And, oh, well, Dave's got it worse than me. So? I know he has. But that's Dave's world, and that's okay. We can almost create the compassion and empathy for Dave, but that isn't my life.
But it doesn't invalidate
how you feel.
The truth of your feelings.
Correct.
And how you feel.
That's exactly it. And we are allowed to feel whatever we want within reason. But emotional intelligence is not ignoring how you feel. It's leaning into the emotion. But a lot of people mask their emotions with drugs, with alcohol, with pornography, with whatever, which is just causing them with food, it's causing them an enormous amount of pain long term because they want to get that dopamine hit. They want to go for that instantaneous gratification as opposed to the long-term fulfillment and happiness. It's easier to masturbate than it is to have a great sex life. It's easier to eat junk food than it is to prep your meals. But it's like the old adage, when you do what is easy, life becomes really hard.
Yeah.
When you do what is hard, life becomes really easy.
Yeah.
So I purposefully do hard shit every day. I'm not saying I get up at 4 and I jump in an ice bath and I, squawk affirmations like a pelican and drink kale smoothies. But you've got to do hard stuff to prepare you for hard stuff.
Yeah.
Is what I'll say on that. So, but I think that, going back to the original point, a lot of people won't take action because they're fearful of outgrowing their network or their inner circle. So they'll stay mediocre. They'll stay painfully mediocre for the one life, I believe, that we get because you don't want to make your mate look bad.
Oh, yeah, I understand what you mean. I think it's a well-told story, isn't it, of someone who's done good, in inverted commas, raises out of their community, if you like, in that way, material wealth perhaps, but in other ways, in mindset, in their view of the world, and the people who were in that community start to resent that. Mm-hmm. I guess largely because the success of that person is holding a mirror up to them, which is painful.
Yeah, and also they don't want to lose you as well.
Yeah.
They're fearful that they might lose you, so they want to keep you where you are. So you growing equals I'm dying or I'm stagnant at best.
Yeah.
So
and you doing that has made it painfully real for me.
Oh my God, yeah. That's it. So there's two ways to build the tallest building in town. You either build it or you tear down everybody else's. So
interesting. I've heard that one before.
Yeah. So and that's unfortunately not always again, but sometimes it's school friends. More often than not, it's actually family, which is really sad.
Yeah.
I see that a hell of a lot, where siblings might do it, where mum and dad might do it, where because of their limitation around money and how they were raised around money, they can't quite fathom it. People can't fathom that I've 5x'd my income, my salary from what I earned before by doing 14-hour days on my feet in hospitality. And now I primarily sit on Zoom calls in meetings.
Yeah.
So yes, I do retreats. Yes, I do in-person meetups. Yes, I do corporate talks and what have you, and podcasts, etc. But generally speaking, it's me sat in the comfort of my own home, and I can charge a good hourly rate for it because I help change people's lives.
Yeah.
But me included, I felt guilty for doing that.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're basing it off what you're currently doing, and then you start hanging around with higher net worth individuals. And, I know a client that has a yacht and it cost him 80 grand to fill up his yacht in petrol.
Yeah.
You're going, I wonder how guilty he feels. So, you can always go to another level, essentially.
I don't know if you and I discussed this before, but on the point of a pay rise, tell me if I mentioned this, but the idea came up of awarding myself a pay rise here at Howeth. And bear in mind now, I own 75% of the business. I don't need to report to anyone in theory or in paper. I can make the decision about awarding a pay rise. The business had done very well. The money's there. Every logical factor for awarding a pay rise to myself, market rates, etc., was all there. And yet, I feel this sense of guilt. Am I worth it? Is that a bit too much for someone my age? Perhaps younger for an MD. I don't know if I should. I don't know if that's right. And a 48-hour period went by where I had an internal wrestle of, is that pay rise right? Despite the fact, just to repeat, every logical factor points towards doing it. Business success, market rate, performance, etc. No one could debate it if they saw it from the outside looking in. And yet it still took me. I had this feeling of guilt. Should I do it? Should I not? Now, my only saving grace is if that had happened 5-6 years ago, it'd have probably taken me 2 weeks to come to the decision. Now it took me 48 hours and I awarded the pay rise and I've moved on and not thought about it. But I can relate to the point because there was that wrestle between, am I worth this? Which maybe comes from a self-esteem point, and
it definitely does. Yeah, and people say that kind of vernacular to me every day. I'm in a constant battle with my mind. Like, I like to sort of deconstruct sentences. I'm like, you're in a constant, meaning it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Battle. When I think of a battle, I think of death. I think of attacking or defending. With a separate entity, your mind. So, does it have to be constant? Does it have to be a battle? And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, maybe it's not a constant battle.
Yeah.
Maybe instead that you've got a difficult decision to make. Because we don't have catastrophize our language. And some people do this with their behaviour too. So they might be on a diet and they have a chocolate bar. And then they go, well, I've had a chocolate bar now, so may as well have the crisps, may as well have the pizza. Well, I've had the pizza, it's Friday night, Saturday, I'll have a fry up because I've had pizza last night, so what's the point?
Yeah.
And then you have, whatever.
That's very human, isn't it?
Yeah, throughout the day, and then you go, so it's Sunday, you've got to have a roast on a Sunday, and you've got to have sticky toffee pudding, and you've got to have this, and you've got to have that. I'll just start Monday. But I say to them all the time, look, and again, for the example, just having a chocolate bar is fine, but catastrophizing. So I give this example all the time because people realize how ridiculous it is. So you're driving down the motorway. Let's imagine that one of your tires blows out. Are you going to get out with a knife and pop the other three?
No.
And you go, well, of course not. Or AA man turns up and you go, hang on a second, mate. They're like, be like, what on earth are you doing? Why did you do that? That's what we do with our thoughts, though. We catastrophize and we do stupid things like that when we could actually just sit with it and just let it be. So as it pertains to your example there, every decision that we make as people is only good or bad in hindsight. Southgate, look at it, what's happening in the Euros at the moment. Brings on a player, let's say scores the winning goal. Oh my God, he's a genius. If he brings on the player in the semis, and they get red carded. Oh my God, he's an idiot.
Yeah.
We live and die by our decisions. So you just have to do your best you can with the resources you have at the time. And it sounds to me like your resources are improving because before it would have taken 2 weeks. Now it's 2 days. It might get to a point where it's a day. And then in a year from now, you go, pay rise. Right, let me have a quick look. Positives. Yeah, I've worked hard. We've hit our quota. Yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I've done that. Downsides. It's going to hit the business a little bit, but I run the business, so no, I'm going to do it. Done.
Yeah.
And it's that quick and it's that instantaneous. And that is what growth is. It's improving because a lot of people don't make change because they overwhelm themselves with too much too soon.
Yeah.
So, I have to achieve X, Y, Z by ABC, which means I'll have to do 1, 2, 3 to achieve it. When in reality, again, it'd be like saying, right, I'm going to sign up to London Marathon and just put your trainers on and you just start sprinting the whole thing. It's not going to work out very well. So instead, maybe go on Amazon and buy your trainers. That's the first point of call. Can we go out for a walk today? Of course. Can you go out for 2 minutes longer tomorrow? Of course. Can you start jogging lamppost and walking at lamppost? Of course. In 90 days, if you follow that methodology and download Couch to 5K and whatever, most people will be able to run 5K or 10K.
It's too long, Adam.
In a 90-day period.
90 days is too long. I want to be able to run the marathon next week.
Yeah, but people say that to me as well. They'll say, when does it get better? I say, it already is. Like, what do you mean? By asking that question, that's a growth mindset. Maybe rather than saying when and putting a destination, say how. Oh, it already is getting better. How can I improve it? Oh, what can I do today? What am I in control of today? And people have been miserable for 6 years and they're not willing to do the work for 6 weeks.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Can I go back one? And I've got a couple of questions to ask you.
Sure.
We talked about, you mentioned just offhand as you were talking about setting boundaries and saying no to people. And I just want to explore that a little bit. So, and the people pleasing as well. I don't know if they're related, but you hear that a lot.
Yeah, they are,
of not being able to say no, people pleasing. Does that go back to self-esteem again?
Absolutely.
Adam, we're going back to the same
Honestly,
root
mate,
cause
we
here.
are. Unfortunately, mate, we are. Again, not everything is a 7 or 8 years old thing, but it is self-esteem thing. And self-esteem can be built easily, but it can also be destroyed easily. Self-esteem can be built by following through with what you said you were going to do. So
To yourself.
yeah, I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow. And if you go to the gym tomorrow, congratulations, you've just got some self-esteem points. If you say I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow and then you don't because it's raining, you go, oh God, why do I always do this? Why do I always promise myself something and then don't do it? It's because it's that mini dopamine contract again. I don't have to do that tomorrow yet, so I'm going to make a commitment now. So if I commit now, oh, that feels pretty good. I'm going to start Monday. Great, I don't have to do anything today. Monday, though, I'm going to smash it because it feels great to make the commitment. So when it comes to boundaries and people pleasing, I think they're brothers and sisters, personally, because they go hand in hand a lot of the time. Now, a lot of people have a big issue with saying no. So I don't actually encourage them to say no. I just encourage them to say yes, but to themselves.
Okay.
Big difference. I'm not saying no to you and rejecting you if you want me to come out this weekend. I'm saying yes to me. So outwardly, I'll say, thanks so much for the invite, mate. Unfortunately, I can't make it. That's as much detail as you need to go into. Because what people pleasing looks like is, oh, I'm so sorry because, I've got this going out of my bank account this week. You have to explain yourself. You don't have to explain shit. No is a full sentence, but it can be a little bit destructive, so I won't always recommend it.
Yeah.
You coming out this weekend? No. Oh, right, okay.
Sorry, mate.
Yeah, just no. Oh, right, okay. So you're not going to have many friends doing that, but if it's thanks so much for the invite, mate, but on this occasion I'm not going to go. I had a difficult decision to make in April for my friend's stag do. It's 25 lads going to Lisbon. I don't drink alcohol anymore. Been 4 years without it. The thought of turning up at Leeds Bradford Airport with 25 lads going, oi, oi! No, just absolutely not for me whatsoever. And I'm the oldest there by about 5 or 6 years as well. And I think that in our late 20s and 30s, every year for a man is like 3 years in maturity. You grow so much. And I thought, no. So I said, look, mate, on this occasion, I'm not going to come, but I would love to take you out for dinner, just me and you. And I can honour our friendship that way. Oh, great.
That's a nice way of putting it.
It's a really nice way of putting it. So instead of going, oh, I'm not going there, mate. I'm not drinking with all them idiots. It's just no, thanks for the invite. On this occasion, I'm going to say no. But I didn't have to explain any further because he knew.
But the honouring our friendship is a really nice touch as well. So just let me go back on the yes to yourself. So you're saying, look, I can't make it, no, without further explanation necessarily. You don't need to go into the details, which I've definitely been there, and I'm sure many people have. Until you get a little older, I think, you're like, I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
But you knock back and you're saying yes to you, as in you're saying yes to what I would really want to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying no to the night out. I'm saying yes to early bedtime.
Because that's what I know I need. I know I want.
I want to rest. I've had a hard week.
Yeah.
I want to say yes to, for example, spending time with my children in the morning and not being hungover. I want to say yes to my partner by having a film night because I've not seen her all week. I want to say yes to my own mental health. I want to say yes to my physical health. So I'm not saying no to the proposition. I'm just saying yes to myself more. And that's a concept that a lot of people, air quote, struggle with.
I think that's a good reframe, though. I think you're right. I'm saying yes to me more.
Correct.
Not that that's a bad idea. In fact, on another time, I could love doing that. Yeah. But on this occasion, I'm saying yes to me more.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So doing that, and we're teaching people how to treat us every single day, whether we like that or not. So if someone tries to do something, let's say, I don't know, a staff member turns up late here, and you'll create compassion and empathy. Is everything all right? I noticed that you were 20 minutes late today. Oh, really sorry. Yeah, stuck in traffic. Okay. Next day. Everything all right at home? Or sorry, I noticed you were late today. Is everything all right? Yeah. Sorry, just traffic. Right. Okay. There will get to a point where you're going to have to be a bit firmer, of course. Yeah. Because otherwise, everyone's just going to start rocking up 20 minutes late. However, you can get to the solution faster by taking Joe Bloggs out for a coffee. Oh, hi, mate. I noticed you were 20 minutes late today. I don't want to be invasive, but is everything all right? Yeah, it's fine. I noticed the pause there. This is a safe space. Is everything okay? No, I'm really not sleeping well at the moment. Okay. It might be they're not sleeping well because they're anxious. They're anxious because they're arguing with the partner. They're arguing with the partner because they're trying for a baby and they can't, right? So there's always something deeper, but you can get to the problem rapidly if you know what tools to bring out the toolbox.
Yeah.
Going up and going, is everything all right? Tell me what's going on at home right now. I'd be like, whoa, shit. It was just stuck in traffic, mate. Yeah, there's a tractor. Don't worry about it. It's not that deep. But equally, let's say you have a friend that might speak to you in a certain way. I found that really disrespectful. I just wanted you to know that. That's the best mic drop you can do, because you don't need to ridicule them. You don't need to engage in an argument. Some people do this and they go, I'm not going to tolerate you speaking to me that way. So when you're ready, you can apologize to me. No, that's coming from the parent state, as it's known in transaction analysis. We have 3 states we operate from: parent, adult, and child. So parent is a command. You need to do this. We then go into child. I don't need to do anything, as opposed to skipping out the most important, which is neutral, which is adult. So let's say your partner goes, well, you pick your socks up off the floor. You always do that. The 2 most destructive words in relationships are never and always.
Yeah.
So, because it's not never and it's not always.
Yeah.
Right. So I actually found that quite disrespectful, the way you just spoke to me there. Well, I don't care. You've left your socks on the floor. I'm not going to engage in this now. I'm going to walk away. They can keep screaming and shouting all they want. Yeah. But it gets a lot quieter the further away you walk, right? Yeah. Because otherwise you're doing this and you're clashing big time and you're arguing over socks on the floor. Obviously, newsflash, it's very rarely about the socks on the floor, right? We know that.
Yeah.
But that is what happens with people. But if you tolerate that from anyone, client, siblings, partner, parents, you'll get more of it.
Yes.
So you can put in that healthy boundary using crystal clear and effective communication, and you can do it rapidly, there and then. But if you wait and you wait and you wait, and she snaps at you again, or he says something to you again, and you allow that to happen, and you're suffering in silence now. And silent demands never get met.
Yeah.
Ever. Silent suffering never heals.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Because we don't know. So, and then it gets to 3 or 4 weeks away. Will you shut up? Why are you shouting at me? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah. Where's this coming from? Like, this is coming from when you had a go at me about the socks, and then when I left the toilet seat up, and then when I didn't do this for our daughter, and when I didn't do X, Y, Z. So you have to nip it in the bud as quickly as humanly possible and use it in a calm manner. It's the most difficult thing to do as a person, by the way, especially when all these emotions are going on. Because we're all just made up of chemicals and past behaviours and beliefs that are deeply anchored in for a very, very long time. But allowing yourself that pause, and it all comes from the breath.
Yeah.
Just by letting in a deep breath in through your nose for 4 seconds and holding it for 4 seconds and releasing it for 4 seconds can make the world of difference between an argument or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I think it's where hopefully a lot of us are striving to be, is when you feel something, firstly, you've got to hear it, haven't you, the feeling, and not just immediately ignore it. But when you recognize the feeling, to then almost be brave enough, vulnerable enough to say what that feeling is in a way that's respectful and, you know, doesn't diminish the other person, but there and then as well. Mm-hmm. I'll probably fall into the category of feeling it, but then don't say anything there and then, think about it, and then I might raise it later. But I feel like the utopia is to get to that point where you hear it and then you say it there and then, how you feel, respecting yourself. We could chat all day, but I'm just conscious of time. I want to ask you about one last thing, if I may, Adam. You did a LinkedIn post about a year ago, which got over 10,000 impressions. And it was about being alcohol-free, which I know on your LinkedIn you lead with being alcohol-free and helping people become alcohol-free. That's right, isn't it? I saw that on your...
It was 2 million impressions, 10,000 reactions.
That's it, 10,000 reactions. It was huge.
It was nuts.
I was looking at it earlier, I thought, wow. And that's why I want to ask you about it, because my question is, why do you think that post about being alcohol-free was so popular and it resonated so deeply and so widely with so many people?
Honestly, I've no idea. The reason why is because, a bit of a weird story about that. So I tend to schedule most of my content. I batch it on a Monday. It takes, 2 hours to write new copy or to get it structured and whatever. There's obviously a big strategy towards it.
Yeah.
On that day, I scheduled a post by accident twice, so I had to delete one, and I didn't have a post. And I was literally, I'm not even joking here, I was in David Lloyd in the changing room, just about to go into the shower, and I was like, shit, I'm going to be in the sauna and the steam room for 45 minutes now. I need to get it out as quickly as possible. I've done that post 3 times before, by the way, over the 2.5 years, because I repurpose a lot of content as well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it hits different, like this occasion.
Yeah.
I was like, that'll be all right. That one's pretty good. That old picture, that'll do. Bang. And I went to the changing room and I came back and I was like, what has just happened?
But why though? What's the alcohol-free bit? Why would so many people either go alcohol-free? Why they're resonating with not drinking alcohol? There's something in the content of that post. And clearly you lead with it. But.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that as we talk particularly about that post, it's a fluke. But talking about the wider subject, it's certainly not. It's so deeply ingrained in our society. It's brandy on a tooth when you're a baby, inexplicably. Yeah. You go to the pub, let's say when you're a kid and you're probably there with your dad, maybe watching football or whatever, and you might try a little bit of dad's beer at 8 o'clock. Start again. You might start having a bit of dad's beer when you're 8 years old, should I say. But it might be 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and you're like, right. But again, at no point would you go, oh, Dad, can I just have a little toke of that cigarette?
Yeah.
It just wouldn't happen. And people might be listening going, it's different. It's absolutely not different. And alcohol's way worse. So many more people die from alcohol than they do pretty much any other drug per capita. Obviously, yes, a small amount of, say, ecstasy is going to be way worse than a small amount of alcohol. Of course it is. Generally speaking, though, there's a huge stigma attached to this. And people are ruining their lives every single day. And I used to see it firsthand in hospitality, just how bad it can get. Because what happens is when I talk about the benefits of being alcohol-free, people go, well, I don't want to stop drinking. That's like walking into a flower shop going, I don't need any flowers.
Yeah.
Well, get out then.
Yeah.
Right? But that's the risk you run when you post on social media. They're just as entitled to respond to my content as I am to post it. And that's okay. Yeah. And I welcome different opinions all the time. People go, no, you're wrong. It's about moderation. I'm not wrong. But guess what? Neither are you.
Yeah.
Because it's your view of the world.
Yeah.
My view of the world is, and I don't give a shit if people drink alcohol or not, by the way. It's none of my business. I did drink, then I stopped, and every single area of my life improved, as has hundreds of other lives that I've helped change through going alcohol-free, because it's the catalyst for most people's misery. It might be that people overeat after they've had a night out. It might be that they argue with their partner unnecessarily. It might be that they spend too much. It might be that they get into fights. I've seen it. I've seen 2 people die in front of me. I've seen people get stabbed, glassed, bottled. I've seen mass brawls like you wouldn't believe. I've seen several people break limbs, knock themselves out, disfigure their face by falling on glass. I could go on and on and on. Oh, that's a bit extreme, is it, Adam? Nope. This was every single week. Yeah. So by the very definition, this is normal. This is not extreme at all. But then people will go, but I don't. And that's fine. But some people, they go, oh, you must have had a problem. I absolutely did. Not in the sense of waking up and scrambling for empty cans of Carling, but in the sense that it was causing me loads of problems. Yeah. And it wasn't improving my life in any way, shape or form. And I would argue that alcohol probably causes a problem for most people. And that problem could be as subtle as a poor night's sleep. But you've had a poor night's sleep and you feel a bit groggy. Kids come in, Daddy, can we play? And that subtlety of the to your kid, you tell me that's not a problem. Fine, then you go downstairs listening to Peppa Pig on a mild hangover. Can't imagine that's very good. Yeah. Some people wanting to change a nappy after a few beers. All the best with that. And it just can compound. And then you might make some poor food choices when you're on a fitness journey and so on and so forth. So for everyone that says, I can moderate and I'm fine, round of applause for you. Yeah. Here's a gold badge. Well done. But again, like I said, some people can't moderate their food. That's why we have an obesity crisis. Some people can't moderate their emotions. And that's why their relationships are struggling. That's why divorce rates are higher than ever. Some people can't moderate their finances. And that's why they get into enormous amounts of debt. So, no, I couldn't moderate my alcohol intake, but I can moderate loads of other areas of my life. Yeah. So I don't need to hear the shame and the guilt, unfortunately, that's attached to, you know what, this has caused me a bit of a problem right now. Yeah. So I think that because it's so deeply ingrained, because it's the norm, you get promoted, you drink. You get fired, you drink. Yeah. You get engaged, you drink. Yeah. You go through a breakup, you drink.
Friday night.
It's Friday night. It's Tuesday at 12 and I need to build rapport with a client. Yeah. I need a drug to do so. Yeah. Maybe not. Maybe you just need to improve your social skills. I'm not being funny. If I was employing somebody, or if I was after someone's services and they're drinking alcohol with me at lunch, I lose respect for that individual a little bit. Not loads because I'm judging them.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want you doing work on my project today if you're having 4 or 5 beers in a beer garden at restaurant, bar and grill. Why would I want to do that? So I think that there's a lot of work to be done, but it's moving in the right direction, and I'm going to keep banging the drum every single day. I've had people set up WhatsApp chats mocking me, and someone's had the bollocks to leave it and tell me about it. I've had someone set up an Instagram page saying that I deserve to die and tagged me in it.
Really?
Weirdly.
It's funny, isn't it?
I've had abusive messages. I've had not death threats per se, but I hope you die, you're full of shit on TikTok and things like that. You name it. But I'm not going to stop, because the trade-off is that I change lives.
Very interesting. I mean, yeah, I do drink alcohol, but you know what? As time goes on, less and less.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, less and less. So I totally understand it.
Yeah, I just encourage people to take a break. If you could take a 30 to 60 day break, and if you can look at alcohol-free alternatives, focus on something else, abstain from bars and pubs for a little while, do it with somebody else. Those are the little tips I'd give to people. And the biggest one out of all of that is alcohol-free alternatives, because it's just known as habit hacking. Look at your current habit. If you get home and you like a beer, replace it with Heineken Zero. It looks the same and it tastes the same. And it's just a liquid in a glass. And that's why I'll never drink ever again, because I can get a good alternative for that placebo effect of, when in reality it takes your brain 5 minutes to register it's had an alcoholic drink. So it's not the alcohol, it's the story you're attaching to it, belief systems again, and it's the association, probably the refreshing drink, that's going to be the thing that helps you more than anything.
Yeah, spot on. Adam, thank you very much. That's been
Pleasure.
brilliant, really interesting, and I think to deep dive on some of those unconscious, the thing I go away with is the unconscious beliefs that dictate the way we act, I think, and also thanks for sharing that personal journey as well.
Pleasure.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.